Alright, babies, what's up? How are we? Sorry, man. Trying to. Here, here, here. Finally. Alright, light is on. Today's video is emotion isn't experienced, a feeling is translated. Emotion is experienced, and feeling is translated. Can you see it? I was writing an article today about the spark that kind of like allows you to reflect and be aware. Because as much as we try to be kind of like open slash accepting to our open and accepting to our situation, it really, the events that occur are either subtle enough for us to not notice the momentum that they're creating, or big enough for it to be a traumatic incident. And personally, I feel like it's always a mix of both, because you kind of have to be, you need that emotion to release itself and to kind of like just fly out of you in order for you to kind of notice what's been holding it in instead of like expressing it. So, and then the reason I say that is because like this week, a random conversation yesterday with the person I'm working with led to a huge, basically like fuck this shit, I'm not interested anymore, and like basically this kind of back and forth between me and him. And in my head I was communicating something and he was understanding something else. In my head I was basically reacting to what he was saying as if trying to explain something, but in truth I don't think we were saying the same thing, which is probably why everything kind of like felt the way it did. But throughout the day, I was like, all right, so like, you know, what am I gonna do right now? You know what? Fellas, I could do this. I could manage on my own. I could figure it out. I could. And I went through that kind of process, right? Because ultimately I was like, okay, what are my options? And as I was doing that, I kind of like realized that the whole thing was pointless. But for some reason, it was triggered. And from some reason, something was kind of like boiling inside of me that had to basically like come out. Whether it's something regarding the dude directly that I was talking to, whether it's regarding the work, whether it's my position, whether it's the company, whether it's now what we're doing in order to understand ourselves better. All of these things is just basically, all of these are kind of like factors. So there was a steady pileup of like maybe untranslated feelings, because here the emotion is experienced whilst the feeling is translated. Because if you're feeling some kind of way and you actually understand it, what you could do is you can express it in what you're doing. And then the feeling itself is translated, and then you go back to a neutral point. Then think about it from a balanced perspective. But an emotion, what happens is it kind of like it's a feeling that's not really expressed. So what happened is basically like, so let's just say it's isolated. And under normal circumstances, you kind of have a spectrum of all the things you feel, but the feelings that are not really expressed, and even if they're feelings of happiness, like I've seen people full of anxiety because of how excited they are and happy they are. They kind of can't handle how their body's responding. If you waited for here's an example. I remember basically when I was a kid, like my dad would be like, this weekend we're gonna go camping, and I literally would not be able to sleep the night before the actual day we go camping, even though we're like going in the middle of the day. I'll just be up all night, unable to contain my excitement. So that's basically the feeling of like that needed to be expressed. It kind of built up every day with the anticipation of the camping day or the day we go camping. And then the day before that, I kind of like started bursting in energy. And I feel that's what we normally do because it translates into an emotion instead of kind of translates into the work that we do. Maybe we can think about it that way. Like a feeling is either translated into your work or translated into an emotion. And ultimately, that emotion will express itself or your work will express itself. Sweet. So translated into action or emotion. I think translated into an emotion because of lack of action. And so, like, what happened was back to my story. And what happened was it kind of like it was an agitated addition or application for a whole lot of things that kind of like led to something. And it made sense for me to kind of like stand my ground on something so petty and stupid. And I'm not sure if it's because my I was not I was not giving myself the attention, or I was not giving myself the energy I need, or I was not expressing myself properly. And I wonder what that means. Again, like it doesn't necessarily mean somebody's at fault. It just means that I still do not have the skill to actually explore something. But the moment the emotion was experienced, and I acknowledged it naturally, because a lot of people like get pissed off and don't get acknowledged that they got pissed off, or don't acknowledge why they got pissed off. So they'll get pissed off again for the same reason. The idea is to actually experience it, is to allow basically, "Oof, yeah, this is what I was going through, this is what I was talking about." And so uh, as that happens, sorry man, you kind of like I'm exploring all the different feelings that were expressed through the entirety of the drama. And it made me realize that, okay, these feelings could have been articulated, or maybe I needed to actually like have an emotional expression and experience in order for me to understand these feelings because they probably weren't there before, or at the very least, they only exist because I am moving in that direction that I'm going to. Which kind of like leans into more the whole feeling is translated. Because if I want to get married, like the feeling of happiness becomes different than if I just want to like build a small house or if I want to have a small garden. All of them technically are happiness, but they translate into whatever the thing that is encompassing the feeling, right? The action, the activity that's building around it. So because I consistently am like picking new goals and changing new goals, I kind of need those emotions to be explored, to be experienced. Because once these emotions come up, what happens is you kind of like gain awareness of their existence. And I actually wrote something. It's like, uh, I'm going to show it to you actually. I'll pop up 1 second. Notice when goals are arriving, basically, you tend to have pent up energy that you cannot release on Tipper or the workers or basically your work. Because in a way, there's kind of like that change that you've been working towards, right? And normally these emotions express themselves when you get emotional, when there's stagnancy, maybe. It's probably because you don't necessarily know what to feel. But when change is happening, then emotions are basically kind of like squeezed out of the situation because you cannot change without things being processed. So the stagnant emotions, remember the spectrum of feelings, the stagnant emotions that are kind of like lingering at the bottom. will one way or another come out. And so my idea was literally like what I wrote down today was you can't release it on your work. And so maybe friends, family, working out, angry punching tires or something. Basically, I literally wrote them as options. Are a way for you to kind of like let go of this emotion because I feel like that energy that gets pent up, if it's not expressed, if it's not targeted, and if it's not allowed to express itself as the energy that it is, again, like it doesn't matter how beautiful. I don't know. It's just like you can pick the nicest smell in the world, and if you can press it in a balloon, eventually it will pop the balloon, and it will be an explosion. It'll still be the best scent in the world, but it'll still be the energy of it is going to be explosive. So that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter if it's like the positive energy, like I'm changing, I'm growing. It has to be expressed and experienced. And and that normally happens when the feelings that we have are not properly translated. We're either not necessarily skilled enough to translate them properly into the actions that contribute to our work, or we're just basically either lazy or on awkward. We're not there yet for our efficiency to be at a high level. And why the fuck not, man? This is a good video. Emotion is experienced and a feeling is translated. Fucking love you guys. Bye.